Okay, share my screen. Okay. Okay. Welcome to our Sunday broadcast. My name is Dr. Dieter. I'm a double board certified physician as an internist and as a pediatrician. And today I'm going to take us through how our chronic medical conditions are due to reversible root causes. So stay with me, and especially for those of you joining us for the first time, I hope you learned something from this. There is now more and more science out there that most of the chronic diseases we face today as a result of something we call metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction is just simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage, okay? And that energy shortage, metabolic dysfunction, is being driven by two things. Well, something called insulin resistance and another thing called microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis. These two things lead to an energy shortage, and that energy shortage then leads to all the chronic diseases that we face today. I want to single out each of these and talk about how they feed into the chronic condition loop, how insulin resistance and dysbiosis cause chronic conditions we suffer from. And I want to start by talking about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, when we say you have insulin resistance, is just simply a fancy medical term to say that your insulin is not working well. You see, insulin is the most important hormone in the body. Insulin is the essence of life, if I will say. It dictates the smooth structure and functioning of the body because it has a very important function. And what is that important function of insulin? It is this. A job of insulin is to mobilize glucose out of the cell, mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. Mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. Uh, yeah, glucose is found in the blood. When we eat, the end product of absorption is the release of glucose into the blood. So the job of insulin is to get that glucose out of the blood and to mobilize it into the cell. Okay. So when glucose is mobilized into the cell by insulin, glucose goes through, there is an energy factory in the cell called the mitochondria. Okay. The glucose is shunted through the mitochondria, and in the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, with the result being the release of an energy molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. It is basically energy. Now, every is an energy currency. Every cell in the body needs energy to function. Cells make up tissues, tissues make up systems. Sorry, tissues make up organs, and organs make up the system. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. Why then is insulin important? Because insulin helps to secure energy, and without energy, a cell malfunctions. The simple definition for a disease is a cell that has malfunctioned. And the number one reason that a cell malfunctions is that it lacks energy. So when we say that you have insulin resistance, or your insulin is not working, what we mean is that there is a breakdown in this process of insulin mobilizing glucose out of the blood into the cell so that energy can be produced. Anywhere where there's a breakdown in this, we say you have insulin resistance. Now, How does the breakdown occur? It's important to understand that, because if you know how the breakdown occurs, we can walk backwards to fix the breakdown. If my car breaks down and I take it to the mechanic, the first thing the mechanic has to do is to run a diagnostic to find out how did Dr. Dieter's car break down. When he now understands how the breakdown occurs, he can walk backwards to fix it. So let's understand, how does your insulin go from working well to not working well? How does the breakdown occur? It occurs in two ways. The very first way is what we call too much fat. Too much fat. Okay. Now, how does too much fat cause insulin resistance or your insulin not to work well? You see, a cell is normally supposed to look like this. When you consume, so normally, a normal cell, when we consume more calories than we are supposed to, I'm going to draw a replica of that cell right here. The body takes, when we consume more calories than we are supposed to, those excess calories, the body takes those excess calories and converts those excess calories into fat. The body doesn't know what to do with that fat, and it takes the fat and comes and lumps that fat into this cell. So normally that cell was supposed to look like this, but now the excess calories has been converted into fat and is lumped into this cell. And this cell now becomes a fat laden cell. And the job of insulin, if you will remember, is when there is glucose in the blood. Insulin is going to tell this cell, hey, I got this glucose, get it into the cell so that we could make energy. But you now have this cell that is fat laden, and all the fat is filling up the space in the cell where glucose normally should take up. So when insulin comes and knocks on the door of the cell and says, knock, 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 hey cell, I got glucose in the blood, I want you to take it up. This cell tells insulin, I'm sorry, I have no room in the inn. I am filled with fat. I have no place for glucose to come lay his head. So glucose could not get into the cell to run through the electron transport chain to make energy. You have a failure of insulin being able to exact its effect on the cell. You have insulin resistance, your insulin not working. Now, what that now does is that leads to a cascade of a second symptom which causes your insulin not to work. And the cascade of the second symptom is what I call too much fat. Okay. Too much fat is the second way in which your insulin is not working. Remember, insulin is very pivotal. It's when insulin is working smoothly, it's like the CEO of the body. It dictates the smooth structure and functioning of the body. It's the most important hormone numero uno, CEO, when insulin is working well. Now you have the cell that is filled with fat. The cell is filled with fat and the cell cannot take up glucose. Because the cell cannot take up glucose, glucose accumulates in the blood because there's no room for glucose to enter the cell. That glucose that accumulates in the blood is a trigger for the pancreas to produce too much insulin. You see, there's a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose and the amount of insulin produced by the pancreas. So when glucose goes up, the pancreas gets a text message, hey, you need to produce much insulin for us to bring this glucose down. One-to-one relationship. Now, too much insulin is no bueno. It's not a good thing. Too much insulin is like imagine a CEO of a company who is normally humble-headed, who dictates the smooth structure and functioning of a company. And one day he comes to work, he has gone crazy, he's acting unreasonable, he's backing unreasonable orders to people left, right, and center, firing people for no good reason, coming to your desk and saying, you're gonna do it the highway or my way. He's just lost it. A CEO like that, who normally dictated the smooth functioning of that company, when he loses it, his employees lose their respect for their boss, the CEO. When you lose your respect for your boss, it makes it hard for you to do what your boss asks you to do. So you translate that to the cell. When insulin is running too much, when insulin becomes too high, insulin is acting like a bully and a tyrant to the cell, yelling at the cell, commanding the cell, you do it my way or the highway. And that bully or tyrannical behavior, the cell doesn't take kindly to that. The cell loses its respect for insulin. And when the cell loses its respect for insulin, the cell is not excited, or the cell is reluctant to do what insulin asks the cell to do. So if insulin asks the cell, hey, open your doors this wide so that I can let glucose in, because the cell has lost its respect for insulin, the cell is going to open its doors this wide. If the cell opens its doors this wide, a narrower door means that less glucose comes in through this narrower door, and more glucose is going to accumulate in the blood. That more glucose that accumulates in the blood is a trigger for the pancreas to produce even more insulin. Okay, even more insulin is like going from fry pan to fire. It's like having a CEO that was crazy at this level, and that CEO raises his craziness level to right up here. He becomes even more cuckoo. The employees of that CEO lose even more respect for the boss. You translate that to the cell. When insulin is running even higher, please, can you guys, Keith, can you help me to mute whoever is coming in? And do your thing, please. So even when insulin becomes higher, the cell loses even more respect for insulin. And when the cell loses even more respect for insulin, the cell is more and less reluctant to do what insulin says, because the cell has lost its respect for insulin. So now initially insulin asks the cell, open your doors this wide. And because of the initial loss of respect, it opened its doors this wide. When the cell loses even more respect for insulin, the cell will open its door now this wide. You have an even narrower door. So you have a vicious cycle process occurring. And that's how your insulin goes from working well to not working well, going from insulin sensitivity to insulin resistance, too much fat and too much insulin. Now, when you have insulin resistance, it's going to cause you to have a shortage of energy. That shortage of energy is now going to drive diseases. Now, this slide is not exhaustive, guys. I wish I could say that this is the end all be all of all the diseases in modern day world as a result of your insulin not working. But unfortunately, I cannot find a slide big enough to put all the diseases and symptoms that are the result of insulin not working well. I want you to think about this. Insulin is central. When insulin is working well, it causes the body to produce energy, ATP, and every cell in the body requires energy to function. The shortage of that energy results in malfunction. Malfunction results in diseases and symptoms. Now, the other thing is the microbiome. The second thing right here we'll talk about. To understand what the microbiome is, or microbiome dysfunction, to understand what microbiome dysfunction is first of all important to understand what the microbiome is. It is a group of about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in the large intestine, and we live in a symbiotic relationship with them, where we do for them, they do for us. We scratch their back, they scratch ours. We're supposed to, as man, we're their hosts. We're supposed to provide them food and shelter, and in turn, they do all of these functions for us. I want to highlight two important functions. Okay, one of them is this bacteria, this 30 to 100 trillion bacteria, help to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease causing. And the way they do that is the production of a special molecule called a short chain fatty acid that goes to help to protect the gut. Now, I want you to think about the cells of the gut. They are lined to each other, one to the other, one to the other. When the cells of the gut line to each other, one to the other, where they meet, they form the wall. Okay, so each where my knuckles meet, imagine a cell, one cell and another cell. They meet, they form a wall. That wall here, this junction here, is called the tight junction. It keeps the wall, the integrity of the wall of the colon intact. So these short chain fatty acids right here, They are like concrete. They go and pour concrete on this junction to keep that junction tight. When that junction is tight, bacteria or toxic substances cannot leak out of the colon into the blood. So that's how the activity of the microbiome helps to protect us from disease-causing bacteria. An important function of the microbiome, which I want to dwell on a little bit, is to help to train the immune system. It helps to regulate and train the immune system. You may not know it, but about 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. 70%. The other 30% of the immune system resides in the bone marrow, lymphatic lymph nodes. And the microbiome, these bacteria are responsible for training the immune system to have an appropriate response to what is danger or an appropriate response to what is not danger. I put it this way: when the bacteria in the gut is healthy, it trains the immune system in a healthy way. And that healthy way looks like this. Hey, immune system, you see that bacteria right there? He's a bad guy, but you could kill him very easily with a stone. If you just use a little stone and you shoot at it, you take him out and he'll be gone. We don't need anything excessive. And then you'll say, hey, you see this other bacteria? He's a bad guy. If you use the stone to him, that will not be appropriate force to kill him. For this bacteria, he's so bad, you need to drop a grenade in his backyard, for you to be able to kill him. And so, or giving the immune system an appropriate response, use a stone for this one, use a grenade for this one. And then when the microbiome is healthy, it also trains the immune system not to attack the body cells. It looks like this. The microbiome may tell the immune system, hey, do you see that guy right there? And the immune system says, what guy? I cannot see that guy, the guy you're talking about. And the microbiome says, the reason you cannot see that guy I'm pointing to is because that guy is in camouflage. He's wearing camo. That's why you cannot see him. He looks like the enemy, but beware, he's not the enemy. He's one of us. He's actually doing some reconnaissance work, and that's why he's in camo. Please don't fire at him. Don't attack him. He's not the enemy. He's a friend. Okay. And so, training the microbiome not to attack what is not dangerous or what is not a threat. Now, when the training the immune system, I beg your pardon. Now, when the microbiome, this 30 to 100 trillion bacteria, are not healthy, they train the immune system in an unhealthy way to have an unreasonable response, an unhealthy response, to threats or perceived threats. What does it look like? If the microbiome is unhealthy, it taps the immune system on the back and says, hey, listen, you see that bacteria there? He's a bad guy. You could probably take him out with a stone, but you know what? Why use a stone when we have already determined that he's a bad guy? Let's have an explosion. Why don't you drop a grenade in his backyard? Why only kill him with a little stone when you could use a grenade? So, an overkill for bacteria that could have died with a simple stone, the microbiome says, no, let's deploy a grenade and let's make a big splash. So an inappropriate response, an overkill. Now, it takes it to another level. It may say, hey, you know what? You see that bacteria, you see that guy right there? I don't know. He looks like he's in camouflage. I know that when I see camouflage, it could be my friend or it could be my enemy. But the microbiome says, you know what? That guy in camouflage, I don't really know whether it's the enemy or whether it's a friend. You know what? I have no time. Let's just blow his head off. We're going to take him to the autopsy table and determine whether this soldier was our friend, or part of our camp or the enemy. So it trains the immune system to shoot first and ask questions later. So the immune system ends up attacking cells of the body that are camouflaging, that look like they are toxins, but they are not toxins. So that look like they are bacteria, but they are not bacteria. And that's how you develop autoimmune diseases. So, that those are the functions of the microbiome. I want to highlight there's some other functions here, synthesis of vitamins. So, when we now say that you have microbiome dysfunction, another name for dysbiosis, what it is that there is an imbalance in the bacterial population. You see, the bacteria population, about 50% of the bacteria in the gut are bad bacteria, and the other 50% of the bacteria in the gut are good bacteria. The other 50% are good bacteria. So they balance each other out. They live in a 50-50% population. We say you have microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis when there is an imbalance in this bacterial population. And what happens is that the bad bacteria proliferate, maybe go up to 70%, and the good bacteria go down to maybe 30%. They lose their 50-50% check and balance. Why does that happen? That happens for one main reason, the shortage of food. You see, the food for the microbiome is fiber. When there is a shortage of food, we do not consume enough fiber because our foods are so processed. It sets into motion survival of the fetus. In that survival of the fetus, the bad bacteria, the stronger bacteria, they hoard the little food that is there. And then after hoarding the little fiber that is there, they say to themselves, for us to increase, or for us to keep a hold on this little food that is there, let us go ahead and increase our army so that we can keep a hold on that food. So it causes them to increase their army, go to 70%, and the good bacteria go lower. That when we have that imbalance, you say you have microbiome dysfunction or dysbiosis. And when you do, you develop a slew of illnesses. This slide again, unfortunately, is not exhaustive about all the diseases that come as a result of dysbiosis. You will see lupus nephritis, an autoimmune disease, the microbiome attacking the body cells. MS, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease. Hashimoto's, autoimmune disease. Many of these diseases linked to the microbiome. I want to highlight anxiety and depression because this was a thing that when I learned, it surprised me. Some of you guys may be surprised to see that anxiety and depression stem from the gut or from the microbiome. And when I explain the biology, it makes sense. You see, there is a neurotransmitter or a hormone called serotonin. That hormone or neurotransmitter is the mood hormone. It maintains our mood and happiness. Okay, maintains our mood and happiness. Now, when 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut, 90%. The other 30% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. When you have an unhealthy microbiome dysbiosis, that 90% cannot be produced. And if that 90% cannot be produced and is important in maintaining mood and happiness, it makes sense then why people with dysbiosis have anxiety and depression. So, this slide is a slide which called the metabolic sequence of inflammation. It shows that insulin resistance and dysbiosis result in metabolic dysfunction, oxidative stress, and injury to the cell, resulting in chronic inflammation, which then results in the disease process. Now, there is now evidence that if these things which are the root cause of the modern day diseases, there's now evidence that if you reverse these things, we see that the root cause that stole energy, that stole the energy. If you reverse that and you restore the energy shortage, you reverse the disease condition. And I like giving this analogy. If I had a car and the car was driving on the road and I ran out of gas, when I run out of gas, that car is gonna stop. The car stops because its fuel source is gone, not because of intrinsic failure of the engine. If I walk to the nearest gas station, buy a gallon of gas, walk back to my car on the side of the road, and I put gas in that car starts again. It starts again because I have restored the energy shortage. It is the same as the body. It is so simple but so profound. These diseases that we are having, the dysbiosis diseases, the insulin resistance diseases come as a result of energy shortage. And just like the car that you put gas in starts again when you give it, when you put fuel, when you put gas in the tank, these diseases, evaporate or go away when you restore the stolen energy that resulted in the diseases. And so I want to present to you guys a solution called the Feel Great System. The Feel Great System is a nutraceutical product, and it helps to do just that. It goes to the core of the problem to reverse the insulin resistance and reverse the dysbiosis that resulted in the energy shortage. When I talk about a nutraceutical is a product that is made 100% from plants but has nutritional benefits. Now, there's this health company that asked the question that why did our great grandparents 100 to 150 years ago not have these issues? And they answered the question, it had to do with their nutrients, what they ate. And they ate certain phytonutrients that kept their insulin working. And so they said, what if we could, go look at foods that have these special phytonutrients and look at foods that have these special phytonutrients and make a product that people can just take simply. And so that's how the solution was born. And the Feel Great system is made up of two products, a Unimate and Balance. Any of you guys who are in healthcare, maybe a pharmacist, a nurse practitioner, a doctor, or what have you, you'll be interested to know that these products are listed in the prescriber Dex reference, which is something I found very interesting as a physician. So let's single out both of these products and how they reverse insulin resistance. Let's start with the Unimate. The Unimate is made from a plant that is native to South America called the yerba mate plant and is rich in polyphenols. The polyphenol that is rich in is a polyphenol called chlorogenic acid, okay? What polyphenols do? Polyphenols are amazing for our metabolism. Polyphenols help to reverse insulin resistance. If you remember this chart, the way you develop insulin resistance. And how polyphenols do it is they do it by promoting, they do it by promoting fat burning, okay? Do it by promoting fat burning. The science of this, by the way, is using these products use the science of intermittent fasting, and fiber supplementation to reverse insulin resistance. So when you consume the Unimate, because the Unimate has in it chlorogenic acid, which is a polyphenol, it goes and causes fat burning. Polyphenols cause fat burning. So you now come to this cell that was fat laden. This cell that is fat laden, and it now starts burning the fat in this cell. So that when you're burning the fat in this cell may now turn and now look like this. It may have a little bit of fat, but not as much as it did. And then as fat burning continues to occur, because the property of this is it causes lipolysis, fat burning. Okay. As fat burning continues to occur, this cell now goes to looking empty, back like this cell, back to the normal. And in this stage where this cell is free of fat, not 100%, and this stage where it's 100% free of fat, all the glucose that had accumulated into the blood can now go into these cells, into this cell. And what that happens is that glucose can now go into the into the mitochondria, go into the electron transport chain, and result in energy production. So that's how consuming the Unimate, because of his fat burning property, causes you to reverse insulin resistance, and you're now able to make energy. The cell now has what it needs to function, reversing the malfunction. The beautiful thing about that is that when this cell now becomes fat free, it solves the second problem of insulin resistance, too much insulin. When glucose now enters the cell, the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a text message is sent to the pancreas to say, hey, I want you to now go to producing low insulin. Low insulin is like a CEO of a company who was once crazy, who comes to work one day and he calls an in service and gathers all his employees and says, "Hey, listen, guys, I have a big apology to make with a very contrite heart." He says, "I've been a jerk for the last 2 to 3 months, yelling at you guys, giving unreasonable demands. I fired some of your colleagues for no good reason," and very humble, and he asked for an apology. That's what low insulin is like. If I'm an employee to a boss like that and he comes with a contrite heart and asks for an apology, I'm immediately taken. I am touché, what the Frenchman will say, touché. I am touched. When I'm touched by that humility, I forgive my boss. When I forgive my boss, I regain back my respect for the boss because of that humility. When you regain your respect back for the boss, what happens? You are more open to doing what the boss asks you to do. If the boss asks you jump, you say, "How high, boss?" You now have the respect of the boss. You translate that to the cell. When insulin is now running low insulin, the cell regains its respect back for insulin. Insulin has come to the cell and apologized for being a bully and a tyrant. When the cell regains back its respect for insulin, when insulin asks the cell, "Open your doors this wide so I can let glucose in," the cell is happy to open its doors this wide. More glucose gets into the cell, it can go through the electron transport chain, result in energy production, reversing the energy shortage. Now, the other product, balance is just simply fiber. Fiber taken from 7 different plants. And fiber is very important for our metabolic health also. It does exactly the same thing that Unamate does. It helps to reverse insulin resistance in exactly the same fashion. So you want two people doing a good job for you than one person. So the fiber as well as the Unamate, they do exactly the same thing in reversing insulin resistance. But the other thing that fiber does is that fiber helps to keep your glycemic index. It still reverses insulin resistance, but it helps to keep your glycemic index low and has implications in this way too. When you consume fiber, it lowers your glucose spikes. So if you and I went to a restaurant to eat lasagna, and you had your lasagna without a salad, your blood sugar is going to go up to maybe 170. If for me, let's say I asked the restaurant owner, "Hey, get me a big bowl of salad," or they don't, or I don't want to do a salad. I tell the restaurant owner, "Hey," I not tell the restaurant owner. I go with my balance. Balance is huge in fiber. I consume balance, okay, which is fiber, and then after that, I eat that same plate of lasagna. This is what my blood sugar will do. So you and I have eaten the same plate of lasagna. My blood sugar may go up to 80, yours 170, and the only difference is that you had no fiber, and I had fiber and balance is just huge with fiber, but this balanced product just contains fiber. Why is that fiber decreases your glycemic index. It slows the transit of food through the colon. When the transit of food through the colon is slow, absorption occurs slowly. When absorption occurs slowly, release of glucose into the blood is slow. So I want you to think of these implications. Because your blood sugar has gone up to 170, your pancreas is going to have to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar 170 because of the one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin production. For me, because my glucose only went up to 80, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that. I want you to think about high insulin like the crazy CEO who the employees do not respect. And I want you to think about low insulin, 5 units of insulin, low insulin as the humble CEO. who has apologized to his employees, and his employees have more respect. So that's what fiber does. Fiber helps to improve your insulin sensitivity, by causing your cells to be more responsive to insulin when insulin is lower. The last thing that fiber does, guys, is that fiber helps to reverse dysbiosis. Fiber is food for the microbiome. Remember, I said that you develop dysbiosis because of a shortage of food that results in survival of the fittest instincts. When you consume the balanced product, it is rich in fiber. It goes and gives food to the good and the bad. The good and the bad bacteria have enough food to go around, so there is no competition. I say this, every living organism, every single living organism, whether it's a lion in the jungle of Cameroon, where I'm from, or whether it's a bacteria in your gut, every living organism requires nutrients to survive. And the food for the microbiome is fiber. So by giving the microbiome fiber, you reverse dysbiosis. So I want to end by saying this: the feel great system has become, as a physician, has become one of my favorite tools in helping people to address the root cause of their illnesses. And since the science is heavy, saying that when you reverse those root causes, your diseases can go away, the feel great system, is a solution that can help you reclaim your health again. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll pass on to our moderator, Dr. Tiffany, who is going to help us take it from there, or Amory. Thank you.
Hello, I saw Anne-Marie was there, and of course, we'd love to have Anne-Marie do this too now.
All right. Well, yes. Why don't we do this and I'll pull both of us up and spotlight both of us for everyone. But welcome. Excited to see everyone. What Dr. Dieter is talking about is a simple solution when we combine the Feel Great Balance and Unimate. And I just want to show you some proof, some evidence of what it looks like when people actually use this product. We also have some people that are on that are able to share. What I love starting off with is I love starting off with our speaker showing you what he looked like before he discovered intermittent fasting. This is him on the couch. And then this is 5 years. The picture of him in the black jacket is 5 years of intermittent fasting and jogging on a regular basis. And the pink jacket is just 2.5 months using Unimate Balance. People say, well, I could just do some intermittent fasting, but what we find is the results that people see are so significant and visible. This is 35 days of someone on the system, someone who was sick, insulin resistance, Dr. Kinney. On the system, you can see how the fat just melts away when you use it. And Kimberly, 60 days apart to give you a feel for how quickly when you get that inflammation out of your body, people start changing really quickly. Angelita, you can see the difference in her body shape, but for her, Dr. Dieter really touched on this. This is anxiety, depression meds for almost a decade. And in a couple of months, she just didn't need to fill that prescription anymore. She wasn't feeling anxious. She wasn't feeling depressed and has just a whole new lot on life, which is why we call it the feel great system. People start feeling great. They feel the best they've felt. This is Dr. Marla, a good friend of mine. Long COVID, was struggling. Here she's in this picture, this first picture. She was walking with a cane on a cruise, walking with a cane. She said she looks like her, great Aunt Mabel. And in 3.5 months, she slimmed down, got all of her blood work in line, nothing abnormal, took all those yellow reds in her blood work and made them all green. And now she goes hiking in the Arizona mountains without a cane. So she has gotten her life back. This is 50 pounds in 50 days. Someone who also had psoriasis all over their body for as long as they can remember. And within 90 days, that psoriasis was completely gone. He had so much, he's actually leads the Psoriasis Foundation because this had impacted his life so much. This is not a picture of him, but this is Claudia, who also had psoriasis for as long since she was a teenager, as long as she can remember. Now she's in her 60s, started on the system and has completely clear skin for like literally the first time in her life. She also added the omega-3s that the same company makes to her protocol, and that's what got her this completely clear skin here. So we see significant weight loss because what we're doing is we're just managing lifestyle. We're making lifestyle changes easy, easy to do. And it's the lifestyle changes. Once you're able to do some intermittent fasting, you're able to reduce your carbohydrate absorption. Here he is trying on an extra large jacket for the first time in as long as he can remember. And when you lose weight this way, you don't end up with hanging skin because autophagy will actually address that, the weight piece of it. So when Cody, who's pre-diabetic, started using the system, one of the things he noticed, he also stopped craving beer and alcohol. So we see hand in hand a lot of people who struggle with alcohol addiction also feels a little bit like sugar addiction. And when they get their insulin levels low and that sugar craving gone, they also find that they're able to stop using alcohol on a regular basis too. This is Jimmy, no more blood pressure meds, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which he'd had forever, gone, acid reflux gone, migraines gone, insomnia gone, dropped 2 pant sizes and 2 shirt sizes. But the biggest deal, no more meds. So he was taking meds 5, 6 times a day and down to none. Reversal of type 2 diabetes, A1C of 14. Now it's even lower than this in normal range. And so when we use this system, we have tons of evidence of it working. I also wanted to highlight a couple of real life people who are on here too, that would love to have them share their story. I'm going to grab Dr. Festus first, if that's okay. I'd also like Dr. Tiffany to share her story, and we're going to get Keith on here. And if we have time, I'd love to hear from the official George Maple Syrup yeah, on this too. So, Dr. Festus, tell us a little bit. This isn't a weight loss product, right? You were already a thin person. No one would look at you and say, Dr. Festus needs to lose a bunch of weight. You look about like you do now, but tell us what happened when you started using this system.
Yes, Marie. I actually have always been athletic, and I used to do half marathon, and so but back in 2013, I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea. It's when you sleep at night and you don't get enough oxygen, and sometimes you kind of stop breathing and stuff like that because of that. Um, so it was so difficult back then, and the doctor put me on a machine called a CPAP machine, and this machine I wore it for 6 months. It was very depressing. It was the most depressing thing that happened to me. Finally came across an oral appliance that I used for 12 years. For the past 12 years, I've had to wear it in my mouth every night before I sleep. Actually, I still have it here. I've not been using it, but I have it here. So
Yeah, for a demo to show us. Thank you.
whenever I need to travel, I have to first put this in my bag before I put anything else. Um, so when the Dr. Dieter told me about this protocol, and what touched me was that obstructive sleep apnea he was talking about, and I was like, you know what? It doesn't hurt to try. I know I have 90 days money back guarantee anyway, so I did it. I tried. I started using it. Oh my God! On the first day, I didn't need to drink coffee. I usually need to go through 2 cans of espresso, Starbucks espresso, every day to run out my 12-hour shifts. And since I started in May, I have not tasted coffee. I've not drank any caffeine product. My
Mm-hmm.
energy was boosted. But now so I was still wearing my Aura appliance, and then I started feeling the energy and the way I was sleeping so good. So after a month, I decided to take out the Aura appliance,
Mm-hmm.
and since then, that was it. I
I
have not had to do that.
I
Like
see.
literally, if I did not wear my Aura appliance, I would snore all night, I'll snore. Even usually say my legs will be kicking at night as well. And I will
Mhm.
shake. I usually sleep briefly, then I will shake. When I shake, it's difficult to go back to bed. My
Mhm.
arms will be numb. I'll be so tired, especially the following day because I didn't rest enough. But now, when I get to bed, I'm gone till morning. I sleep
Mhm.
like a baby. I don't have to raise my pillows. I don't have to do any of that. I don't snore. I don't get up with nothing. I just feel like energized, and it is awesome. Like, this is the best thing that happened to me. There is no pill that cures sleep apnea. I was told when I was diagnosed that I will live with it all my life.
Mhm.
Just imagine having to live with this all your life. I was told I had to live with this all my life because I didn't have it because I'm overweight. So, but here I
They
am.
couldn't, your doctor couldn't say like, "Oh, hey, Dr. Festus, you just need to lose weight." You were
Yes,
already as slim as anyone could be and in great shape, great physically fit. So the normal, hey, I don't know, just try losing weight, prescription didn't make any sense for you. And
yeah.
that's why this is amazing to see. The energy and all of things. And the correlation that the Dr. Dieter was talking about too is when you're not getting enough sleep, that's a depressing time, right? So you wouldn't have necessarily described yourself as a depressed person or struggling with depression, but as you look back on that time, you're like, hey, that was really hard. But when you can get sleep and when you cannot, be cooking and moving around all night, and you just feel a lot better, the day is so much easier, less anxiety.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. No, this is the best thing that happened to me. And being a pharmacist, I see firsthand a lot of people having a lot of metabolic dysfunction and needing to be on a lot of medication. So I'm
Mhm.
so very happy that this cure my sleep apnea. Thank you.
That you found a way. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. We appreciate it. We have Keith that I wanted to share, have Keith share as well. So Keith, let me put your picture up here. I save it for just a little bit later, and often I let you introduce yourself for just a moment before showing it. But I want to prepare you. I'm going to show you a foot ulcer. This is Keith, the guy who's talking to you right now, 54 years old. We're going to tell you his story. But in January, he had a foot ulcer that I'm gonna show you for a minute that went septic. You could open it up and here's January. It looks tragic. This is a person who's under care of all of the doctors, right? A foot doctor, endocrinologist, all the people. He is under medical care. Developed a foot ulcer. Someone could put their a gloved finger in there and actually feel a bone. Then he went septic. They saved his life. He was in the ICU, nursed him back to some level of health. He was in a hyperbaric chamber would go every day, 45 minutes to go drive and get treatment. And after about $180,000 worth of treatment in this chamber, this is how good his condition was. Then 3.5 months on the Feel Great system, which is the balanced Unimante that Dr. Dieter spoke about. This is what his foot looks like now. And he was able to, you have a pulse in your foot again, which they thought would never happen. And fun fact was that I got to see Keith in person a couple months ago, and I see him. When I met Keith, I thought he was 65, and he's not. He's 50, 55. Are you 55 now? 55?
No, 54.
54, 50, okay, still 54. And then when I saw him in person, I didn't recognize him because he looks like he's some young, fit, he's some young, fit looking guy that really completely transformed his life. So Keith, tell us a little bit, in your own words, what has this experience meant to you and the simplicity of what we're talking about?
Well, I'll start off with I'm not a doctor, just average guy, worked in corporate America forever. But yeah, I was diagnosed diabetic 25 years ago, um, on varying levels of insulin throughout the years, varying level of meds. Um, and when when I died in January and they brought me back, it kind of changes your outlook on things. They called my daughter to let her know that I wasn't going to be around. She had to get to the hospital on what was supposed to be one of the happiest days in a young woman's life, finding out what my grandchild was going to be. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, when I started taking my grandson was born on June 3rd, and I started taking the product literally on my birthday. It showed up at my door. Um, and it made a difference right away. I was on 108 units of insulin off that in one day. My energy level shot up immediately. Um, by the time I was 60 days in, I was down about 50 pounds, and I noticed everything was changing. I was off half my meds. By day 90, I was down 65 pounds, and I was off all my meds. The last med to come off was my heart or my blood pressure med. I'm no longer taking any meds,
Wow.
which were 15 a day. I'm not getting shots in my eyes, injections to curb the bleeding in the back of my eyes. My eye doctor said the back of my eyes haven't looked this good in over 4 years. My foot doctor is amazed. My cardiologist is amazed with the blood work. She can't figure it out. Um, but yeah, it has. I was telling Dr. Dieter and George actually, I spent all day Saturday at my brother's helping him dig in some French drains outside his yard. And before this, I couldn't get up out of a chair. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sleep.
Mhm.
Um, and now I'm sleeping in the bed and loving it, actually. I worked all day Saturday. I was on my hands and knees. We were up, walking and doing all kinds of work, and I feel amazing. I was at the dentist. I don't know if you know this yet, Anne Marie. I was at the dentist Thursday, I think it was. It was the day I talked to Troy, and I'm now down 92 pounds. I'm over
Crazy.
12 to 13 inches on my waist. I've reversed my diabetes. My A1C went from 7.5 to last I checked, and I'll have it checked here in a couple weeks. It was 5.6, and I expect that to go down. When I saw the weight on the scale, I literally looked at it twice. And I
Mhm.
got my new driver's license, and I thought they handed me the wrong driver's license because it didn't look like me. It has been truly life-changing, life-altering. It truly saved my life.
Mhm.
And I know I don't say it enough, but if you wouldn't have said yes and Dr. Kenny wouldn't have said yes, I know exactly where I would be right today.
Gone, gone. Yeah. And you know what? Keith did help us out because I was in Phoenix with one of our friends, Troy, and I met a person that had basically Keith's pre-story. And I was like, you have to meet this guy, Keith. This guy is now same thing. He's coded a couple times on the table. He's exactly your age. And part of the reason, not part of the reason, the reason we do these calls is because there are people out there that will be gone. They will be gone if they don't intervene. Keith was under all the care in the United States offers in our medical system. He was not sitting at home ignoring doctor's orders. He was doing exactly what he was told to do and would have died. And we're so grateful that he didn't. We're so grateful that he listened to something like this, which seems like a crazy thing to listen to. But yet we see this again. We see this again and again. And that's why we're here. This is why we're here on our Sunday evening because we want to save someone else's life, right? We want someone else who has a 20-year-old daughter to have a grandfather and not wonder like why does everybody die before they're 60? Because they do not need to. You do not need to die. You do not need to die from eating too much sugar.
I did it for this little guy right here,
There he is. What is his name?
Wyatt
Oh,
Lee.
Oh,
yeah, Wyatt Lee.
That was Thanksgiving Day. He got tuckered out from all the eating.
I love it. Yeah, it's cute. All the entertainment being passed around. This is what we're doing this for. And so George, we call him Mr. Maple Syrup because you had a glucose level of 600 or 800.
I would say
834.
834, if anyone knows what that is. You're supposed to be like if you're above like 110, your body starts to have some damage. Like if you see like a 150 number, that's not good news. So he's up in the 800s. Probably should have died, could have died, but didn't. And so tell us what you found.
Well, yeah, and
Found the system. Yeah, you go.
yeah, and add to that an A1C of 18.1, which means that 18% of my erythrocytes, my red blood cells, can't carry oxygen because they're flocking around with this sticky, gummy sugar. So literally, yes, Keith, I love Keith because we've met and he looks like he's 22 from the first time I ever met a guy. So, anyway, so yeah, I'm happy.
And George too. George has a whole new life, right? You can do things that you didn't think you would be able to do ever again.
At 74, I'll challenge anyone to keep up. But yeah, the basic deal is, guys, I didn't know that I didn't know. And I made a list, Dr. Tiffany, of symptoms. And I have a list of 68 symptoms. I have 58 of them. The ones I don't have is because I didn't have irregular menstrual cycles, PCOS, things like that weren't an issue. But I had 58. Sorry, buddy. I had 58 of 68. Kids, if you don't know, skin tags and all the kinds of things that your skin is telling you, it's because of the chaos inside. That's what I'm going to say. The system works. And I am tired because I have been to so many funerals lately of people 20 years younger than me. There was no excuse other than I would constantly hear, well, they just didn't know that. They weren't aware. No, so our job is to educate and help people understand there is issues that they need to know and be able to identify, and there's hope. So yes, I'm blessed to be alive.
George, we're so glad that you're alive and that the system works. And when I was out, the same person, when I was out in Phoenix, another person that I was working with, Paul, is 80 years old. And he said, my friends are all dead at 80. And they all died of something. Almost all of them died of something that you don't have to die from, right? They just didn't know. They just didn't know. He's like, my network's gone because people are no longer alive. There's no reason. There's no reason people should not be living well.
And we just celebrated my birthday on the boat with 1,000 of my favorite friends. And Cheryl, who is in hair and makeup right now, turned 80, and is the fittest person in the whole wide world. If you could see all the decorations she did today,
she's feeling good. Like Christmas.
Stuff. She took all the Halloween decorations down and put up all the Christmas decorations.
But she has energy.
Get on the system, you'll be well.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, George, for sharing your story. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over Dr. Tiffany. I'm going to hand it over to you to close us out. Tell us, why would a double board certified physician be getting into this with us? What did you found? What was your story? And why would people want to take notice?
Well, I mean, if Maple Syrup George doesn't do it for you, because I actually saw this man at the Spartan race, okay? He was keeping up with everybody else. If stuff like that doesn't do it for you, I don't even know what to tell you. My mother, who just turned 73 this year, same thing. She was like, everyone I know is passed, and they died of metabolic health conditions, and even in her family. And she was like, what do I do? And so when you see that type of thing as a physician taking care of people across 48 states and seeing so many people with ulcers like Keith, or after their third stroke or their second heart attack, and they're still carrying big old baskets of medications, it becomes there has to be something else. And so family practice wasn't doing it for me anymore. Just prescribing medications wasn't doing it for me. And I ended up getting board certified in lifestyle medicine to hit the root causes of conditions. And once I focused on that, life changed entirely. Not only was I able to get off of my blood pressure medicine, I was able to look cuter in my dresses, get that waist down. Who doesn't love that, right? But somebody who would deal with depression seasonally every year with the loss of my child, one thing I didn't realize how much of my life I was missing, how much of my joy I was missing. I mean, besides the time freedom that I have now, but getting on these products gave me that joy back, along with helping other people need less meds. I mean, I have like signed up for my purpose and I'm loving every minute. And the reality is we know someone. We know someone who is struggling. My father died with his third stroke. How many people do we know? I know if I could get people to raise hands, everybody knows someone who is struggling with some of these metabolic health conditions. And at this point, you have been on this call. You have heard these testimonies. You have seen the science. It becomes, why aren't you sharing it? Why are you gatekeeping information that can allow them to live longer and have better quality of life? Why are you doing it? And then why, if you're somebody struggling, why aren't you signed up to take this stuff right now? It's a 90-day money back guarantee. The only thing you have to lose is some of those medications you're taking, or some of that excess weight you have, or the inability to sleep without snoring and stop breathing, or the inability for your ulcers to heal like they should. What is stopping you? And so once I realized that's the question I was asking for myself, I started asking that to everybody else, and it became a no-brainer. Here I am. And that's my question. What is stopping you now? Definitely get back to the person that invited you to this call, because one, they care about you. That's why they invited you. That's why we're on this call. That's why we're talking about this. Maple syrup, all of us. Hey, Marie, this is what we do. And so if that's something you're interested in, we definitely have something that's helping so many people and saving the world.
I love it. Thank you. If you have questions, follow up, reach out to the person that invited you, and we will make sure we get those questions answered for you. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Dr. Dieter, anything else you wanted to close with? We're set. All right. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.